Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Vincent Kelly. I'm very, very, very happy that you're here with me tonight to go over this subject of uncovering your talents and skills, because that's something that you can really use to get your life underway. So I'd like to welcome everybody on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, and thank you very much. If you have any comments or questions throughout the webinar, you can put your comments in at the bottom and they'll come straight around to me on Zoom. I've got Zoom open here beside me. And I just welcome everybody who's joined us there on Zoom. Gordon, Walter, Paul, Eggers helping me on the webinar actually. Marta, Amy, Kimberly, Iveta, Sonia, and Carol. So thank you so much for being here tonight. A little bit about myself. I've been working with people on a one-to-one basis in a group environment for over 25 years, mainly to help people to improve themselves. I checked out many different subjects before I got into one particular subject that I am passionate about and that I believe will help everybody. And that is this subject here called Dianetics. And the webinar tonight is based on this book called Dianetics, which means through the mind, Dianetics. And this webinar is the free introductory webinar to a 4-part online course that I deliver on a Friday night between 8 and 9. And it's called The Mind Explained, and I will tell you a little bit more about that at the very end. Okay, so what I'd love to find out is, before I start the webinar, I'd love to find out where you are all from. Where are you from? Would you do me the honour of popping just your country or your, well, if you're in Ireland, put down your county or your city or your town. And if you're abroad, would you mind just popping into the chat what country you're from? Because I'm afraid if you put down a city, I might get it wrong. You know, if you say Paris, then it's fine, but London, great, but I might get the city wrong. So just put in your country as well. So if you wouldn't mind, pop that in. Let's see who we've got. Hi, Kimberly from Cavan. How you doing, Kimberly? Amy Leash, wonderful. Hi, Amy. Walter, Croatia, beautiful. Carol, Dublin. Thanks, Carol, for joining us. Kjell from Sweden. You're very welcome. I probably pronounced it completely incorrectly, but that was my interpretation of Kjell, Sweden. And Sonia Inverness, wonderful, in Scotland. Wonderful. Okay, folks, thank you so much for joining me. I myself am from the southeast Midlands. Kildare is my county, just not too far from Dublin. Let's get rolling. Okay, so when we're talking about this subject of skills and talents. Okay, now we're looking at two scenarios. You've got somebody who is already very skilled. Very skilled, very talented, knows what they're doing, has always known what they're doing, very professional, makes them happy, and they love it. Dolores from Offaly. Hi, Dolores. Thank you for joining us. So that's one scenario where somebody is very talented and very skillful, and you've all seen people who are really, really good at what they do. Artists, for example, musicians, you know, the natural drummer who's fantastic at drumming, or a person who's a mother, brilliant mother, or a businessman, you know, very, very good and loves it and is talented in it. Okay, so you have that. And don't get me wrong, if you're in a particular profession and you're skilled and talented in some area, it does not mean that you can't change to find something else when you want to, because you have the right to change your mind on things and look at different interests if you like. Now, the second type, we have this group which I would call the don't know. Now, I fell into this group. Like many Irish people, I got to the age of, well, actually I was 16 doing my leaving certificate, nearly turning 17, and I absolutely had no clue what I wanted to do. Zero. I had no idea. How I was approached on the matter was this. When it came to 6th year, I was presented with the situation of you need to decide what college you should go into. But how can you decide what college to develop your skills and talents when you don't even know what you like? you don't even know what you could be good at. You've no clue. I was basically presented by my guidance counsellor, who did try and help me out. I probably wasn't the easiest person to help at the time. But I was presented with a piece of paper, a little booklet actually, with a list of colleges. And I was asked to pick. Do I want to do art, business, biology, medicine, engineering, music? I had no idea. So what I did was, I thought, oh my God, this is great, clever, Vincent. Pick something that is going to be applied to everything. So what did I pick? Business studies. Yes, I picked business studies because I thought, you know what, it's general, and also I know somebody who's close to me who did something like that, and he's probably right. But the problem is that I spent a lot of time studying things that I really wasn't interested in, like law. I personally wasn't interested in law, not really. If I wanted to follow it through now, I could, but I wasn't really interested. Things like production management, not particularly interested in that. Machinery, this kind of thing. Economics, not really my cup of tea. However, I did discover in business studies that there was one area that I did like, and that was personnel management. I did have an interest in this. And so I finally, after a good bit of work and after a lot of wasted time on different things, I did find out what my own personal interest was, what my own basic purpose was, and what my own basic skill and talent was. And that was in the area of coaching and helping. And this is why I'm here tonight in front of the camera, is because I personally love to help people. I like to coach people on a one-to-one basis. I'm also trained as a counsellor, and I really like to see people doing well and getting educated and becoming better and more successful in life. I love to see that. So I do that on a one-to-one basis, and I do that now on a group basis. So that gives me joy. Now, that doesn't mean that if I did other things, like went out and tried football, that wouldn't give me joy too. But this particular thing is something I've dedicated my entire life to, and it's something that just vitalizes me every day. Okay? Now, so I'm going to go over something which you're probably going to find maybe a bit unusual. Maybe because, you might be on this webinars before where people talk about, okay, find out the things that you like to do, knock out the things that you don't like to do, go through all these areas of treasury, of organizing, of management, of technical, and see which you like the best. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, at the moment in school, I think the middle year, fourth year, is a really, really good year where students can go and explore their abilities and what they're interested in. I think that's a fantastic idea. I myself didn't do fourth year, and I think I should have. So, I'm going to read to you something that really gets to the basic of this, and that is what I'm going to write down right now, and it's something that you need to establish for yourself, and that is basic purpose. What is your basic purpose? What do you really want to do in your life? What is it that you want to do, really? Okay, we know you want to pay the mortgage. We know you want to go on holidays. We know you like playing football. But what is it that really is something that you want to do? Because if you don't have this as a basis, it's going to be difficult to build up the skills and talents on top of it. So, I'm going to read this. This is from page 292 of the Dianetics book. And it's literally just a little footnote that I picked up. It was a test done on 15 people. And I personally wholeheartedly agree with this because I have seen it in life so many times. So here we go. Ready? It is a clinical fact. Clinical means based on observation and practice, not just theory. It is a clinical fact that the basic purpose is apparently known to the individual before he is 2 years of age. Beautiful. Talent and inherent personality. Inherent means naturally part of you. Talent and inherent personality and basic purpose go together as a package. So we'll write that down. So we've got basic purpose plus talent. And then here we have inherent personality. Okay. These go talent and inherent personality and basic purpose go together as a package. They seem to be part of the genetic pattern. Genetic pattern is basically what you carry down from your parents. They seem to be. It doesn't mean that there's not other factors. It seems to be. Anyone can be revivified. Revivified basically means brought back to a time in the past. For example, you could be brought back to a time last week and try to recall it as best you can and re-experience it as best you can. Anyone can be revivified dianetically. Dianetically means based on the book. In the age of 2 years and consulted about his purpose in life, and he will come forth with a very specific desire as to what he wishes to accomplish in life. And 2-year-old activity, as reviewed, confirmed it. It will be discovered that his later life followed this general pattern wherever he succeeded. Of 15 persons examined, the basic purpose was found formed at 2 years of age, and when cleared, I'll go over clearing at the end. It's basically about clearing up everything. And when cleared, these persons used and pursued that basic purpose. So, what does this mean? What this means is that a person, so here you are at 30 years of age. Imagine that back here at the age of 2, I know what I want. Imagine that. I know what I want to do. Age of 2, right? I know what I want to do. And as it mentions here, it will be discovered that later life followed this general pattern. Okay? I'm going to show you in a minute the things that mess it up and what you need to peel off in order to get this back again and revisit this. Because if you don't have this basic purpose, in other words, what you want to do, what you're interested in, what you have a goal as, if you don't have that basic purpose, it's going to be difficult to build your skills on top of that and really work on your talent. Even though you can be talented in any area of your life, I wholeheartedly believe that. So, a couple of examples. For example, if you've ever seen a kid and they just love to build things, they're always building Lego or these things, some of the little things that you always have to put together. And you find that that kid ended up turning into somebody who is into construction, or he's into designing, or he's into some sort of structural job in the future, and that's where his college route went. Or you could have a kid at the age of 2 loved cooking, just passionate about cooking. And you find that they actually ended up going down that road and ended up being a head chef in a huge restaurant. Now, even though they might have forgotten about it for 10 years and then only realized it in maybe when they were 13 or 14 and then started on it. Okay? Or you could have somebody who, when they're a kid, they love to sing and they love to dance, and generally their path follows that. So, here is your first practical exercise. It's a webinar, right? It's not just me talking. What I'd like you to do now, this is your little exercise. I'd like you to think about somebody that you know in life that has been passionate about something and very good at something and talented at something for their entire life. Somebody that you know that was always interested in a certain thing and has been following that through right through their life. So just take a moment to think of an example of somebody that you know in your life that has been following their basic purpose. And if you don't mind, pop it into the chat. I'd just love to see it. So just take a moment. I'll give you 30 seconds and see what you come up with. And welcome Duncan from London, Vlado from Sweden, and Gordon from Scotland. Hi, Gordon. So the question is, anybody in your life who's really followed through on that basic purpose? And if you don't worry. You don't have to. put notes into the thing. I just like to get the feedback. That's a great example, Kimberly. Your dad always done things with computers, still does, and loves it. You know, I mean, you'll probably find at the age of 2, he was kind of, I don't know, working out something, breaking things and putting them back together again, and, you know, going out into the shed and getting involved in all the tools and the wires and so forth. So you probably find that at the age of 2, that's what he was doing. If you ask him, maybe he was. Okay. Oh, wow, Amy, what a wonderful example. Sister always loved clothes and has progressed to setting up a stylist business. Brilliant example. Young age, they know what they're doing. They know what they want. They know what they like. They're not covered in all this confusion. They know what they want and follow through on it. Brilliant example, Amy. Thank you so much. Annie Lennox was my neighbour from me. Wow. Okay, Gordon, thank you. That's a great example. On the music end of things, somebody loved music and followed through on it. Great. Now, this is all perfect, and you'll find people who have done this and who are successful once they're following that basic purpose, because they can develop a skill and they can develop talent on top of that. I guarantee you, somebody like a footballer like Ronaldo or Messi, you know, they'll probably find that they loved to play football when they were 2. They were looking at football, and this is what I want to do. They knew it. And they just built on it and built on it and built on it in very, very successful careers. So now we're going to have a look at what are the things that get on top of you that need to be peeled off. Now, I'm just going to touch on 2 of these. Look, there's probably not just 2 or 3 factors, but there are 2 of these that I want to mention, and a third one, which is the point of the webinar, which is the main thing that I believe people need to handle in order to really get a full view of what their purpose is and to develop their skills and talents based on that. Because if you can decide what you really love to do and you want to do, you're going to make the effort to actually get going and get busy on it, and it'll make you happy and you'll feel great, and you'll actually won't go into work slogging, you know, oh God, I have to go in, it's Monday morning, so terrible. Okay, so now let me just make a little diagram here. So let's have a look at this. So we have a kid, okay, and there they are, 2 years of age, and they're happy and they know what they want to do. Wonderful. I want to be playing guitar. I want to play the guitar. Fantastic. Actually, I need to pull him back a small bit here. He's too far out there. I won't have room to draw. Okay. Wants to play the guitar. Okay, fantastic. Age 2. First thing is the parents decide, you know what, this is great. He's picking up these instruments. Let's send him to a school that promotes music. Fantastic idea. Great. So the first thing that he does is he goes to school. Okay. Wonderful. Now, the intention of doing that is great because you have a child that goes to school. This is the very first barrier that the child hits, and that is the subject of education. Now, that's either going to go very well or it's going to go terribly wrong. And in many, many cases, it goes terribly wrong. If the education is very good, that child is going to come out of school and his whole purpose is going to be stronger because he knows more about guitars. Okay? So he knows more information about guitars. The problem is that in very, very many cases, when you went to school, you were not taught how to study properly. And so when you went in to study about guitar, or you wanted to study about outer space, or you wanted to study about horses, or management, or business, or whatever it was that you wanted to study about, the very first thing that you hit are these, what we call barriers to study, things that hit you. And the biggest barrier, the biggest problem that people hit at a very young age when they go into school is they come across many, many new words. Now, this might seem, Vincent, come on. This is not an English class here. Please, please. I didn't sign up for this. Okay, I know. It is an English class. But when a child passes by a word that they don't understand, what happens is their mind starts drifting. They lose concentration and they lose interest. And they don't understand what they're studying. Because you see, in order to be able to use and to be a good guitarist, this kid needs to know the basics. And the more theory he knows, the more the basics he knows, the better he's going to get. And you could say, okay, look, I know a friend who only played guitar and never did any books. Yeah, but he still knows the basics. He knows it. He somehow learned it. So, the biggest problem here, I'm going to put this as the first barrier, and it's basically words, new words, not understood. And I'm going to read you. This is so important about your skills and talents that if you decide after this webinar that you know what, you've realized what your basic purpose is, and you're going to decide, you know what, I'm going to open up my own business. Fabulous. But if you don't clear up this thing here first, again, you're going to hit that barrier. Because if you start studying a subject and you come across lots of new words that you don't understand, what happens is you're going to start drifting mentally, you're going to lose interest, you're going to just leave it. You're not going to get any benefit from it. And this is so important that in the front of every one of this gentleman's books, he wrote this little note, and this applies to this particular book. In reading this book, be very certain you never go past a word you do not fully understand. That's just the first thing. So the first barrier that kids hit is words that they don't understand. And quite often what happens is they come out of school and they don't have that correct mark. They come out of school and they are really not sure if they should be playing guitar at all. Maybe they should be doing something different. Maybe they should be, I don't know, playing golf. Maybe they should be learning to work in a business. And they're already starting to forget the basic purpose because they think they really are not good enough. Okay? Now, what I'd like you to do on this little part is just, you don't have to write this down. I'd like you to think about an example of somebody that you know in life that had major study problems and gave up. Had major study problems and gave up on it. In a particular area. Maybe they decided they wanted to learn how to be a chef, or work on the stock exchange, or become a doctor, and they just decided, you know what, it's not for me. If that happened, this is one of the biggest reasons why. Because as soon as you start passing by words you don't understand, your mind is going to drift, you're not going to understand what you're studying, and you're going to be doubting if it's for you. And the problem is not your basic purpose. The problem was the inability to study properly. So if you have kids, especially small kids, you absolutely should make 100% sure that your children know how to study properly. They clear their words up in a basic dictionary, make lots of sentences with them, and they never go past words that they don't fully understand. And you will have a child who is very educated in the future. And if you haven't done that yourself, as a child, you can start that from now. So this is the very first barrier, study. Okay, so if you've come across that, you don't have to put in the chat, but you can if you like. Let me just see what's coming in. Okay, Eggers. Oh, Vlad, I want to look and stay young as long as possible. Good physical and psychic power. Okay, good. Forced into marketing by my parents, but I found that I loved children. I went into some help. You know, absolutely, Kimberly, that is absolutely wonderful. And, you know, parents, they do want the best for their children, but you do have to consult the child as well. What do they want to do? What do they love to do? And I'm absolutely delighted to hear that you're into something now that you love doing. Okay, let's move on to the next thing. So this is the first tip. Make sure that you understand your words on anything that you want to study and learn about and follow through on. Clear up your words that you don't understand. Get yourself a basic dictionary, not a really, really simple one, a good basic dictionary that's not too complicated, and make lots of sentences. Okay, so next barrier. So these particular things are not necessarily in sequence. So I'm just going to go over the next barrier that people hit. So the child wants to play the guitar. Okay? He's playing the guitar, his parents have been encouraging it, he's going to school, and here's what he runs into. He runs into this thing called suppression. Okay? Now, suppression means to push down. Suppress means push down. So what happens is the child runs into somebody who doesn't want to see him succeed for their own personal reasons. Maybe they're afraid that the person is going to get better than them. Maybe they're afraid of what might happen. Who knows? But they run into somebody who directly or indirectly puts them down. Okay? So we'll just go over direct suppression. Direct suppression. Hey Joe, I really want to play the guitar, and you know what? I think I'm good at it. Let me show you this. And his friend says, you know what? That's the worst piece of music I have ever heard in my entire life. You're never going to make anything of yourself. Why don't you go and do something different? If I were you, I'd sell your guitar on eBay immediately. And you are crazy if you think you could be any good at it. That's what we call direct suppression. Now, if I better give them a couple of names here. Let's make this Mary, and this is Joe, right? Now, if Mary doesn't handle that, what happens? She starts to think, well, you know what? Maybe I'm not. Maybe it's not my basic purpose. Maybe I should be doing something else, you know? She starts to go into doubt about it. Then she forgets about this conversation with Joe. She forgets about that. That happened last week. But she's still now in doubt about whether she should play the guitar or not. She thinks maybe I should try something different. So her mother comes up to her and says, Mary, why aren't you playing the guitar? Oh, I don't think I'm any good at it. Yeah, but why? I don't know. I'd rather do something else. And then slams the door on the mother. And then goes off into something different. Why? Because this fella suppressed her, pushed her down, and Mary didn't know how to handle it. And then it just got stuck in behind and she kind of forgot about it, but now she doesn't want to do guitar anymore. So that's an example of direct suppression. Okay? Now, the next type, we just call it indirect. Look, there's other terms that we can use for this. I just kind of using these terms to make it simple. Indirect. Here Mary meets Joe again, and Joe says, Mary, God, it's great to see you. Very friendly on the surface. Very friendly. Joe's very friendly. All right, you know what? Now, maybe Mary is making mistakes on her music. Maybe she's making mistakes. There's a couple of things she's not doing right. And what Joe says is, Mary, you're fantastic. You're absolutely brilliant. What I think you should do now is get your guitar and go down to the local pub and play the music. You're going to be a hit. Knowing at the back of his head, oh, this is going to absolutely embarrass her. She's going to be so embarrassed. She's going to get booed off the stage. And that's the trick. Now, it doesn't have to be as indirect as that. So Joe persuades Mary that she's really great when in fact Mary has things that she needs to improve on. Sends Mary to the pub. Mary plays the guitar, isn't prepared for it, hasn't prepared for stage, hasn't practiced, and makes a mess of it, is booed off stage, and doesn't want to play the guitar again. And then Joe's as happy as Larry. Oh, Mary, please. Why? What happened? It's indirect suppression. In other words, Joe's intentions weren't good in the first place. They just weren't good. Now, how is Mary going to tell that? Well, there are ways and means that you can learn how to detect this type of situation, but that's for another webinar. I just want to tip on this at the moment. But the end result of this direct or indirect suppression is the person becomes uncertain. They start to doubt their basic goals and dreams. So you might have decided you wanted to open up a business and you were 100%, you knew it was going to work. And somebody told you, yes, go for it immediately. And then it went downhill. And the person says, well, you should have prepared, you know. Or somebody can be very direct about it and say, listen, you're never going to make it, so you're better off sticking in your 9 to 5 forever. There's no chances, there's no opportunities out there. It's a terrible world we live in. So why don't you just stick with what you do? And don't be thinking about stupid dreams and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of direct suppression. Now look, I'm not trying to tell you that everybody who criticizes you or says the wrong thing that you don't like is a bad person. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that there are certain types of individuals and certain individuals that you might encounter in life that will put you down directly, or indirectly. And if you don't handle it, you might get steered off on a different course. Now, so your practical exercise in this one is I'd like you right now, and you don't have to put this in the chat, I'd like you to think of somebody in your life who, by their actions or their words, makes you uncertain of yourself. Somebody in your life, by their actions or their words, maybe they stress you out, maybe they say things, maybe their actions they just drive you nuts, but they make you uncertain about your decisions. You decide, you know what, I'm going to go to London to visit Big Ben. And the person says, well, why would you be doing that now? And you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't. And the person says, yeah, it's better. You stay with me now and we'll go to the pub together. And you start to become in doubt. So just think of that for a moment. Somebody in your life who makes you continuously doubt yourself by their actions or their words. Now, if you've thought of somebody or not, my only advice to you, I'm not trying to say, people often on Facebook and these different platforms, they say, oh, just cut the person out. I'm not that type of person who tells you, listen, just cut the person out and have nothing to do with them. My first recommendation is to deal with the situation. To get, as we do in Ireland, get the pot of tea out, a couple of cups around the table, invite the person over for a cup of tea, or go out for a coffee to Starbucks when it's open, or whatever, or meet them out in the garden or the park, 2 meters apart, just so we're ticking all our boxes here, and have the conversation. Just say, listen, Joe, honestly, I love to play the guitar, but when you tell me I'm crap at it all the time, it just doesn't really encourage me to do it. So if you wouldn't mind. And you know what? In most situations, that'll handle it. Joel, turn it around or handle it some way. So my recommendation is to try and deal with it with a bit of communication first. Before you start cutting people out of your life left, right and centre, I wouldn't be doing that too often. You have the right to communicate with whomever you want to, but the first step is to handle a situation. So if you're experiencing somebody putting you down directly, telling you that you're not skillful, you're not talented, sticking the same thing, you'll never be any good, well, you need to sit down with that person over a cup of tea and have the conversation. Okay, so that's the first two things. So the first thing we looked at was making sure that the education is cleared up. And even, in fact, you can even go back to your studies and clear up words that you don't understand. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. And the second thing is to keep an eye out for people who put you down directly. And you'll know when it affects you because you start to doubt yourself. And if that happens, you need to have the conversation. You can't just ignore it. You need to sit down with the person and have a civilized conversation. Be calm and relaxed about it. Okay, now, next thing. We'll leave Mary there for a second. So that's number 2. Okay. Now, number 3. This, in my opinion, is the most important thing to address. This thing that I'm going to tell you about, anybody who's been in my previous webinars will know where I'm going, steers you away from things that are really good for you. Steers you away. And it's something internal. It's not you, but it's something that you're carrying around with you. Okay? And what this thing is a little package of, okay, I'm just going to put it out here so that I'm not blocking it, of baggage. Okay? Mental baggage. You see, every day you are learning new things. You're learning things about yourself. You're learning things about your life. You're learning things about how to deal with people, how to practice your profession, how to become a more skilled doctor, how to handle patients better, how to do better engineering, music, art, everything. And you're storing all that in this thing, which we call the mind. And without getting complicated about it, because you know what, if you type in the mind on Google, you're going to come up with all sorts of, oh, the mind is this, and it's like a ball of confusion. Let me simplify it. Your mind is quite like just a computer, and it stores pictures. Okay? So it stores pictures. And it stores the thoughts that you had at the time. For example, you can remember your breakfast this morning, right? Of course, because you have a memory of that. Maybe you can remember your birthday last year. Good, because you have a memory of that. And in that memory are the sights and sounds and tastes and the thoughts that you had and the emotion that you felt. And even right back here at 2 years of age, you have a memory of that too. It's all stored in here. And this mind, if your mind is in really good shape, you are most likely going to be following your basic purpose. Okay? Because all this is nice and clean, it's nice and clear, and it's in good shape. Your mind is in good shape. You're going to be following your basic purpose, and you're going to be developing your skills and talents. Now, what happens is this. As you're going through life, yes, you are learning things about life, and a child learns about lots of stuff, and a teenager learns about girls and guys and school and jobs and money and, where to get the cheapest shopping and holidays and all these types of things. So you learn a lot of information, and you have a lot of experiences which are very useful so that you can make decisions in the future. But there is one thing that turns off this machine. There is one thing that turns off this machine, and what it does is it puts in information in your mind that is beneath your awareness. I'm not going to get into the whole complexities of it, but I'll make it just as simple as possible. Basically what happens is this. A person is going along in life, and they're going along, and something happens to them. They experience a lot of pain. Now, that pain could be physical pain. They might get knocked down by a car, or they could have had a very serious operation. They could have got food poisoning. They could have, got affected by a severe illness or whatever. Or they could have been in a physical fight with somebody, or they could have experienced abuse. All that knocks out this computer thing, and instead of the information being stored here, it gets stored here. So when a person experiences pain, just like the fuse box in a house, there's an impact, the lights go out, and anything that's happening gets stored here in this hidden compartment. Now we have a name for this hidden compartment, and this name it's called the reactive mind. And anybody who has the book, it's on page 50. Now, your reactive mind is basically a storage of your bad memories. In other words, times when you had a very severe loss. For example, you wanted to play the guitar, and you were learning to play the guitar, and your music teacher decided that the guitar would belong much better in your head, as in physically in your head, and decides to knock you on the head. Not that a music teacher would do that these days, maybe in the past or whatever, but there was a physical injury. Or you wanted to travel, and you started to travel, and you, this is what I really want to do. And while you're traveling, you got mugged. that got stored in here. Or you really loved football, and during a football match you got very severely injured, you were knocked unconscious. That's the physical pain side. Let's have a look at the emotional pain. You really wanted to do wedding planning. You wanted to be a wedding planner. So you went and you were preparing this wedding plan for this couple, and you invested 5,000 into everything and so forth. And at the last minute, the wedding couple decides, I'm sorry, we found somebody else. A massive, massive blow, a massive loss, and that sticks in here. Now, here's what this reactive mind does, and here's how it steers you away from your basic purpose and your basic skill. So, we're just going to put in here, I'm going to just put pain, just to stick that in here. So you have basically a collection of painful moments regarding your basic purpose. You've experienced physical pain or mental pain, and that went in underneath the surface, and now you're carrying around this thing, which we call the reactive mind in Dianetics. I'll tell you why in a minute. You're carrying around this thing, and its purpose is to steer you away from what it thinks could be painful again. So, for example, let's say in here, the person was playing guitar, and they had a severe injury. I don't know. Somebody, they were playing music in a bar, and somebody came along, grabbed their guitar, and whacked them across the head with it. That information is stored in here. Okay, pretty dramatic example, I know, pretty bizarre. That incident is stored in there. So now, when the person goes to play guitar again, okay, he wants to go to a new bar and play guitar again. What happens is, the reactive mind reacts. It doesn't think. External things trigger it off. So in other words, when the reactive mind sees, okay, a bar, guitar, same story, what happens is it pushes the person off on a different course. And so the person starts thinking, maybe I should do something different. I don't really feel like going out to play tonight. I don't know why. I don't feel like playing the guitar tonight. I just don't feel like it. And the wife is saying, well, why don't you do it? You'd be great at it. Come on, you love it. And he's like, I don't know, I just don't want to do it. But why? And he says, I don't know why. I don't know. I just don't feel like it. It's no good for me anymore. I'd rather do something different. And the reason, in this example, is because his reactive mind is telling him, stay away. And he doesn't know what's going on. He thinks it's something different. Let's take another example. Let's say, as a kid, the person really wanted to help groups of people. Wanted to help groups. Okay? So, started off working with groups and so forth, and that was great. And then one night, they met a group of people down an alleyway. And they thought, okay, it's just another group of people. But the person ended up, after that night, bruised and damaged because that group of people pounded him to the footpath. So what this person now has is a bad experience in relation to their basic purpose. So now, the next time that person is given an opportunity to work in a group or to help this group, the reactive mind tries to steer the person away. So then the person starts thinking, you know what, this time I'd just rather work on my own. And the people around him are going, hang on, but why are you working on your own? You're so good. And he says, nah, it's just not for me. It's because he doesn't know what's going on, because this stuff is buried. So just to summarize this really quickly, the reactive mind is something that you have. It's a container, you could say, of painful things that happened to you in your past. Failures in your job, failures in your career, losses of people that you loved, painful things that happened to you. And what this reactive mind is trying to do is trying to steer you away from those situations again. It doesn't really think, it just reacts. It just thinks the new bar is the same as the old bar. The new group of people is the same as the group of people who beat me up. So it doesn't see the difference between present time and past and just pushes you in another direction. Now, I know this might seem a little bit unrealistic and unreal because you won't know what it is until you go in and you start digging. And that's what I'm going to go over in a moment after I ask you for your example. Now, I'd like you to do this as a little exercise. I'd like you to think of an example of somebody that you know in life who was following a particular path, had a very bad experience, a loss or physical pain or emotional pain, and then steered off. Can you think of an example of that? And if you don't mind, pop it in the chat. And then I'm going to summarize it and show you the solution to this. I'm going to show you the solution to this. So that's what I'd like you to just take a moment to think of an example of somebody that you know in life who was going along a certain path that they loved. They had a very bad experience and then they're not doing it anymore, or they're off doing something different, which is not their basic purpose. Like I have a singer and they love to sing, and they were on stage one night and fell in front of a crowd of 2,000 people. And now they're working in an office. I mean, that's a bizarre example. So, see if you can come up with an example of somebody, and if you don't mind, pop it in the chat. I'll give you more than 30 seconds this time. I'll give you 20 seconds. How about that? I'm being very generous. Hang on, I'm supposed to be increasing it. No, we'll give it 25 seconds. Okay. I better read some of these comments. I missed that one. While you're all thinking of your examples. Okay, Kimberly, thank you. Do two small children, I fully agree. Thank you. Chair White, haha. Love that slams the door part. Yes. Okay, that happens. Husband, want to start my own business, but he wants me to stay at home with the kids. Right. Thank you. And as I mentioned, with these type of situations, you don't just go, right, that's it now, I'm getting divorced, good luck to you, I'm going off and doing my own thing. This is where the cup of tea has to come out. The cup of tea, and get a babysitter for the kids, a cup of tea, maybe in a different house or a hotel or wherever, a cup of tea, and sit down and iron it out. Because it's very, very important that you're following that basic purpose is something that you have to keep. Otherwise, you'll end up 20 years' time and you'll be dreaming about what you should have done. Okay. Uldis, a lot. Okay, I don't even know what question I asked to give that answer, but thank you. Okay, Jal, an artist who couldn't survive on it. Yeah, okay, that's a good example. The person was passionate about music and then ended up with no money, and it's a big loss. And they just went, okay, you know what, I'm not good enough. I'm just going to work in something different. And then too many failures. Very good example. Okay, next one. Kimberly, and just an operation didn't go so well as we wanted, and what I want to do involves a lot of driving, but I can't drive long distance. Okay, good example. And you know, obviously sometimes physical things can get in the way, but what can happen is these physical things can completely drive you off your basic purpose. I didn't use that word drive deliberately, by the way. But it is important to keep that basic purpose. So maybe there is something that you can build up around that, Kimberly, that is still on the same route that you love. So maybe might be physical problems along the way. That doesn't mean you have to stop it. There might be other things that you can do around that area, but just not to lose sight of that basic purpose. Okay, folks, thank you so much for that. So now, what we went over is this. A kid usually has their basic purpose at 2 years of age. Okay? If nothing bad happened, if everything went smoothly, we'd all be doing what we love. But the three things that happen are this. Number one is education problems. And kids and teenagers and people doubt their ability to study. They can't study, and so they doubt their ability to follow their purpose. Number two is suppression. somebody putting you down in life, saying sneaky comments to you, or directly bad comments to you that make you doubt yourself, make you feel bad, stress you out. That's number 2. And number 3 is the most major thing to handle is the baggage. Why is it the most major thing to handle? It's because it's sitting there and you don't know about it. What's in here is stuff that you don't know. So you need to find out what you don't know. And then once you know, it's not going to be affecting you. If you knew about it, it wouldn't really be affecting you because you'd do something about it. But it's stuff, what's in here is things that's affecting you that you don't know about. Now maybe your life is perfectly fine right now and everything's going really great. But maybe there's aspects of yourself you go, I don't know why it is I constantly lose my temper, or I give up so easily, or I'm never following through with my basic purpose, or I don't know why it is that I always feel sad. Well, the answer is in here. I cannot tell you what it is. The answer is in there. It's yours. It's in there. So now I'm going to show you how to dig it. How to dig it up. So I gave you the tips on clearing up your words that you don't understand. Keep an eye out for suppression and have those cups of tea. Oh, I think the person who invented tea and cups is a great person. A cup of tea. Wonderful for a conversation and a chit-chat. Okay, now those are all beautiful solutions I gave you. Now, how do you clear out this baggage? I mentioned the word cleared at the beginning. How do you clear out the baggage? This isn't as gorgeous, but it has to be done. In Dianetics, we do a thing called auditing. And the word auditing means to listen and to guide. And it's done with 2 people. You've got one person who's called an auditor. And this person is helping another person by listening and guiding. The person who's being helped, we have a name for them while they're receiving auditing, and that's called a pre-clear. Pre means before, and clear is just a situation where you've cleared up the pain. It's all cleared up. Okay, person's wide awake, and the auditor is helping the pre-clear to return to things that happened to them in the past which contain pain. And as he does that and clears up the pain, another one becomes visible, clears it up, another one becomes visible, clears it up, and before you know it, not after 5 minutes mind you, before you know it, the pain is cleared up and the person's mind is in really, really good shape. They're able to think clearly, they're being themselves, and they go, you know what? It's clear to me now. I know what I like, I know what I don't like, I know what I want to do, and I'm going to build on it. And it's that thing that then sparks life into the person. They then decide, I know what I want. And they start working on it. And they tend not to go off the path. So that's what auditing is. It's helping a person using the exact 10-step procedure of Dianetics to clear up the baggage. Because that baggage is basically sitting on top of your talent. It's sitting on top of your basic purpose, and it is what is preventing you from really developing those skills that you want to develop. That's the problem. So, now, great, Vincent. So, that's great. Thank you so much. So that leaves me in a predicament because I've had whole loads of stuff that happened to me. What I'm telling you right now, you can restore that life. You can restore that ability that you used to have. It is not gone. Your energy, your ability, your enthusiasm, your happiness is not gone for the hills. It is sitting there in a bubble. And it's sitting there in a bubble that you need to burst. How do you burst the bubble? Auditing. That's how you do it. You get in there and you start clearing up this baggage. Is it always easy? No. Is it a joy? Yes, at the very end of it. But when you're going through it, it might be tough. But it has to be done, and you build on it, you build on it, you build on it. These are where your answers are. The auditor does not tell the pre-clear what he thinks about what the pre-clear should do in life. The auditor is not being a life coach. The auditor is simply helping the person to find his own answers by clearing out the junk. Because underneath that junk is a nice piece of gold, and that piece of gold is more valuable than gold. It's the person's purpose. And it's what the person wants to do in life, because that's what you're going to find out. Okay, so that is the solution. I promised I was going to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly. Okay, I gave you the good. Did I give you the bad? I gave you the bad and the ugly. I gave you all three. Okay, so I'm going to summarize. Hello from Greece. Sotirios. What a beautiful Greek name. Sotirios. I can't even pronounce that last name, but it's nice that you joined us from Greece. Okay, so I'm going to summarize this whole thing again. Your basic purpose has been there since you were a kid. It doesn't mean you can't have a new purpose or change your purpose, but it's been there. The couple of blocks are, number one, education problems. If you cannot study, you have to handle that. You have to learn how to clear up your words that you don't understand and encourage people to clear up words that you don't understand. Number two is suppression. Somebody putting you down, directly or indirectly. It has to be addressed because it makes you doubt where you're going in your life and what you really want to do. And number three, and the most important thing, is the hidden baggage that you're carrying around, because it just keeps getting triggered and triggered and triggered, and after a while you don't even know what's going on with yourself. You don't know why you can't get out of bed in the morning. You don't know why you couldn't be bothered working. You don't know why you just cannot wait for that 3-week holiday because you can't stand your job. You know, you're going to get to the root of all this stuff using Dynetics and using auditing. So now, the last couple of minutes, I just want to tell you what I would recommend for you. Obviously, there's more that you can learn about education. There's more you can learn about suppression. But the number one thing that you need to start on, and as I mentioned at the beginning, this webinar is based off this book. I deliver a 4-part online course on a Friday night between 8 and 9. And it's based on the book. And what we do is we break down the basic parts of this thing, which we call the reactive mind, so that you have a clear understanding. After every module, I'll give you some exercises to do at home. You send them to me personally, and I will correct them to make sure that you fully understand them. And we just progress from there. At the end of the 4 webinars, you'll have a much greater understanding of what's going on and how to really get yourself going in life and start to follow your true path. That is the end result of it. More understanding and more stability. And then you'll be able to work out what you need to do next. Now, the entire cost of the 4 modules is €20. It's nothing. And what's more, this book on which the whole thing is based and where you'll find all the information is included as part of it, and it's sent out to you free of charge. There's 500 pages in the book, and it contains all the basics, and it contains the 10-step procedure that you do. You just have to follow it. But we go over that on the modules. So that's The Mind Explained is the name of the modules. It's on a Friday night. There's going to be a link going up in a moment for that on the chat and also onto Zoom. Oh, there it is now. That was like you read my mind there, Agers. And so I would basically personally take care that you really understand every part of these modules, okay? And then as I said, the book, which is fantastic, is sent out to you free of charge. So the whole cost is €20. Now, so finally, I want to, it's a minute to 9. I've timed this really well. What I'd like to do is I'd like to thank you for your time tonight. You didn't have to give me your hour, but you did, and I really appreciate it. For everybody on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, though I can't see you personally, thank you very much for listening and for watching. For everybody on Zoom, thank you so much for your time. I hope this has been of benefit to you. I hope you enjoyed it. And I really hope to see you on Friday night on my webinar, the first module of the online course. So thank you very much. Kjell, Walter, Marta, Amy, Kimberly, Iveta, Carol, Dolores, Olga, and Aldous. Thank you so much for your time tonight. I will bid you good night, and I wish you a wonderful evening, and I hope to see you all on Friday night. I would love to have everybody there. Okay, folks, so Thank you very much and have a wonderful evening. Bye bye.